Ubisoft has officially confirmed The Division 3 is in development. What does that mean for fans who fell in love with the franchise? In this deep dive breakdown, we examine exactly why The Division 3 must return to the survival, grit and the tension of the first game. The Division isn't just another looter shooter, it is something deeper. Something more atmospheric, more grounded. It's a world that felt lived in, a world that breathes, aches and pulses with tension and cold silence. When the first Division dropped, it created that emotional landscape that few games have captured since. Players didn't necessarily just shoot their way through missions, we actually survived them. We felt every single bullet, every footstep in the snow and every breath fogging up in the cold. This wasn't just gameplay, this was immersion. Now years later, Ubisoft has confirmed what many fans were hoping for. The Division 3 is finally in development. That alone is massive news. But the bigger, more important question is this: will it feel like the original again? Because that's what fans are really craving, not just more missions or gear sets or exotic weapons. They want the heart of the franchise back, the soul, the sense of desperation and survival that actually made the first Division unforgettable. When the Division launched back in March 2016, it didn't just introduce a new gameplay loop, it brought something entirely fresh to the shooter genre. It was somber, it was dark, it was paced deliberately. You weren't a power fantasy in body armor taking every man down, you were a wary agent trudging through the icy remains of New York City after what I would say is a bioterror attack. And that setting wasn't just for flavor, it was the soul of the game. The snow-covered cars, the flickering Christmas lights, empty streets littered with the signs of collapse like trash and people wandering around lost. Every corner told a story, every echo from a distant recording reminded you that this world was once full of life. And now, it was just trying to hold on. Combat in Division 1 felt raw and tactical. Enemies didn't just flood you like a swarm, they dug in, they flanked. They made every encounter feel a little bit different. You couldn't just rush in most of the time, you had to really think. You had to position yourself, you had to use cover like your life depended on it, because most of the time, it did. Movement really mattered, awareness really mattered. You scanned rooftops, listened for radios, and never felt safe. Even when you're in your base, as soon as you come out of that potentially safe zone, you're instantly seeing enemies. The game really pushed tension over speed and precision over chaos. But then in 2019, The Division 2 arrived, and it made a bit of a shift. It's set in Washington DC this time. The game moved away from winter isolation into a world of summer and sunlight. Mechanically, it was a step forward. There was better shooting, more content, and deeper systems in general. It had a bit more polish, a bit more variety, and more layers of endgame depth than Division 1. But something got lost on the way. The vulnerability, the weight of the world on your shoulders, the emotional atmosphere that made the first game resonate so deeply with players, wasn't as present anymore. DC was bigger, it was more open, and it was more explorable, but it felt less intimate, it felt less tense. Missions became more elaborate, almost theatrical, shall we say, but it lacked the grounded desperation of the Division 1's survival. Enemies kind of lost their edge, becoming archetypes rather than remnants of a broken society that was surviving and banding together. The line between the tactical shooter and an action RPG became blurrier, and while Division 2 was technically superior, spiritually it felt like a different franchise altogether. What really set the Division 1 apart wasn't just its gameplay mechanics, it was the feeling that it evoked in you every time that you logged in. The world felt cold, not just in temperature but in mood in general. You weren't just traversing a broken city, you were bearing witness to the aftermath of a society that had collapsed. The silence between each encounter spoke volumes. Every alley, every storefront window, every ruined living room had a story buried. Those stories didn't necessarily just come from dialogue, they also came from the world design and the environmental storytelling, because that was its most immersive part. There was a quiet to everything. The snow wasn't like background decoration, it was also kind of psychological. And then came the survival DLC, which many fans still consider the single best piece of content the franchise has actually ever released. It stripped you down to your basics. There was no gear, no food, no warmth, and an infection slowly killing you. And you had to make it to the dark zone. Every action counted. Every choice had weight. Do you search that building for medicine, or do you risk freezing to death in the street? Do you avoid conflict completely, or fight for something small like a jacket? The survival mode didn't just give you a challenge, it simulated desperation, and that desperation bonded players to the world like nothing else. Let's not forget the factions as well. In Division 1, enemies weren't just random gun-toting lunatic people. They actually represented something. The cleaners weren't villains for the sake of it. They were the consequences of an ideology that was taken too far almost. The burning and cleaning of infected. The Rikers, they weren't just escaped prisoners, they were opportunists surviving the only way they knew how, criminally. Each group told a part of post-collapse story, showing us how fragile morality becomes when society is collapsing. All this layered meaning and the blend of setting, psychology and survival is what made Division 1 feel so unique. It wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy, it was almost haunting. It was a slow burn immersion with consequence of every single action you made. The snow wasn't just scenery, it was a threat. The world wasn't just decayed, it was alive kind of in its own way. Before Ubisoft ever made a public statement, the speculation machine has been turning for years. Dedicated fans, data miners, insiders, everyone began to kind of piece together what might be the next move for the division. And what they found kind of pointed to something surprising, not just another sequel, but a potential return to the soul of the original game. The tone, the tension, the survival, all of it possibly making a comeback. Whispers of internal test builds began to kind of circulate in the communities. Some sources claim that Ubisoft has been experimenting with a darker, more grounded version of the franchise. Something far closer to the gritty realism of Division 1, rather than the streamlined combat loop, say, of Division 2. Screenshots were allegedly leaked and then quickly deleted. Forum posts have been deleted, but the takeaway has been undeniable. The studio was kind of listening and the change was in the air. One of the most talked about rumours was a new setting, no longer potentially confined to the US. Division 3 could actually be taking us to Europe. Cities like Berlin, Amsterdam or Paris has been mentioned. These urban centres are dense, historic and distinct in their own ways. They're filled with alleyways, claustrophobic interiors and decaying monuments that scream tension like a post-collapse society. Imagine a post-crisis Berlin in the dead of winter. That's a good mood, that's a good narrative. That's Division 1, but reimagined in a new place. And it hasn't stopped there. Leaks have suggested since that the introduction of bold new mechanics are coming on, so a real-time weather engine that not only changes visibility, but also alters NPC behaviour. A karma system has been mentioned that tracks your moral decisions and influences which factions align or oppose you. Potential permadeath dark zones, where entering with a character means literally risking everything for that rare loot and reward. Some insiders have even hinted at AI that reacts dynamically to your habits, so if you always take rooftops for example, factions will then start guarding rooftops. That's reactive design taken to another level in my eyes. Other rumours have focused on progression and player agency. Potentially a loot economy that was a little bit improved with more direct ways to chase gear, less RNG, more intentional. Base building that should actually matter. As you can remember in the previous games where you are building up your base, we would like to see more knock-on effects of that in the community. communal hubs that will grow or decay based on mission success around them hubs. I think that would be a great idea. Even some of the leaks have even hinted at a player-run black market for loot, where supply and demand are actually determined by the community themselves. Ubisoft might finally be moving towards a living, breathing ecosystem. And while none of these leaks have actually been confirmed, they all share a similar sort of theme. High stakes, great immersion, and a world that doesn't just exist for you to beat it, but one that actually kind of pushes back, where your decisions kind of affect the landscape around you. Whether these features actually make it into the final build or not, they still paint a picture of the intentions and what Division 3 could be, and from what I'm hearing so far, I'm finding it very exciting. Then came the moment that fans had been holding their breath for. In September 2023, Ubisoft finally dropped the news, officially. The Division 3 was finally in development. And they didn't just confirm it, they reignited the community's hope by announcing the return of a familiar name. Julian Gerety, the official creative director behind the Division 1, wasn't just coming back now, he was now the executive producer across the entire Division brand. That detail has changed everything. He wasn't just someone who worked on the original, he kind of defined it. He helped shape that important tone, the world, and the pacing. And now he's back again, and apparently he has a clear mandate to refocus the franchise, return it to its roots, and to push it beyond anything we've ever seen before. Not just aiming for nostalgia, but correcting the course that the Division was on after the Division 1, before it took a different path with Division 2. He's since emphasised a world-first design philosophy, meaning that the world itself, its tone and immersion, comes before any feature checklist. In his words, players should feel something the second they load into the game. The mood, the tension and the atmosphere, those elements should hit even before the tutorial begins. That's the philosophy of Division 1, but elevated. So yes, it is early, development is ongoing, many details are still under wrap, but what we do know paints a promising picture. The right creative team is seeming to be in place, the engine is powerful, and the studio is talking about atmosphere, survival and emotional impact, not just features and monetization. This isn't just a green light, it seems to be a bit of a reset. So onto my opinion of what the Division 3 needs to be. The key to the Division 3 success for me won't be found in choosing between the first game or the second. In my eyes, it's not really about picking a side or a game, it's about blending their strengths to create something better, and something that's more memorable. If the Division 1 gave us atmosphere and Division 2 gave us mechanics, then Division 3 needs to become the perfect blend of both. Players don't want to go backwards, but they do want to go back to what mattered. Start with the world. Division 3 has to bring back tight, grounded urban environments. Not just big for scale, but actually dense with detail. Every alley, rooftop and tunnel needs to tell a story. Let us feel boxed in, not just for the gameplay, but for the atmosphere that you feel. The claustrophobia made the Division 1 feel intense at times. It changed how you moved, how you fought, how you survived. It wasn't just a cool feature. But the mechanics from Division 2 shouldn't be disregarded. They brought fluid movement, a lot more customization and a lot more replayability. Skills feel actually responsive, weapons had a little bit of personality about them, and the loot was kind of efficient when you are grinding. But Division 3 needs to slow that pace a little bit, deepen the tension and make them choices be meaningful again. That starts with the combat, bring back that grounded, punishing edge. Make cover actually matter again, make enemies flanking terrifying, make engagements less about bullet sponges, please, and more about tactical execution. And missions, they need to feel like war stories, not just checkpoints. Don't make us care about beating a timer, make us care about who we're saving or what we're risking to do it. Let environmental storytelling lead the game again. We want to find apartments left mid-evacuation, street corners where desperate final messages have been scrawled on the walls, survivors that you find clinging to hope, and factions desperate to extinguish it. The world should tell its story organically, visually, and emotionally. Division 3 also needs to bring back survival to the forefront of the game. Weather and time of day should do more than just shift the look of the game. Introduce events that force you to take shelter, fog that you can't see your enemies in, blizzards that drain stamina and force you to find warm areas. Make survival a mechanic, not just a mode that you can download. Let players feel like they're adapting to the world, not just navigating it. Bring back that raw, desperate survival element. Let the dark zone feel dangerous again, not like a theme park with a loot timer. Let it be filled with moral dilemmas. Help another player extract, or ambush him and take the gear. Introduce that karma system where the reputation shapes not just your dark zone level and you going rogue, but a karma system that shapes how NPCs and factions treat you. Have a knock-on effect, have a butterfly effect. Let players become legends or outlaws if they choose. Division 3 also has a massive opportunity to rebuild that community experience. Introduce them hubs that grow based on player choices. Maybe a safe house that you can work together. It starts with flickering lights and boarded windows, but as different players contribute supplies and defend it, it evolves. We've done something similar before with Far Cry and things like that. NPCs move in, vendors appear. Think about more vendors within your small hub rather than a large base. That kind of storytelling makes players feel like they're leaving a mark on these hubs and leaving a bit of a legacy behind. All of these points point to one simple truth. Division 3 cannot play it safe. It has to be bold. It has to take risks, not just with features but with the tone. Let it be lonely again. Let silence be just as powerful as that gunfire. Let failure hurt and success feel earned. The most powerful moments in Division 1 didn't come from kill counts, for example, but from the atmosphere. The feel of the weight of the world pressing in as you tried to do your job and save New York. The feel and the desperation of trying to achieve a mission that has taken you 17 times to repeat and beat it. The feel of achievement from that is something that nothing else can top. So, we're at a bit of a crossroads. One of those rare moments in gaming where everything kind of aligns. Ubisoft has now officially confirmed that Division 3 is happening, and it's not just a sequel announcement. This is now an opportunity to reflect on what made The Division a cultural moment and rebuild that experience with everything we've learned since. It's a rare opportunity not just to continue a franchise, but to actually restore its identity. In the end, it's not about gunplay or gear scores for most people that play the game. It's about the feeling. I've reiterated this throughout the video because that's what makes The Division such a brilliant game. We've seen what the franchise can do, we've felt what it's capable of. Now we stand at the threshold of one of the most important chapters. The stakes aren't just high for players at the moment, they're personal. From the ones who spent hundreds of hours in snowy New York, for those who solo extracted in the dark zone, for those who remember the first time they stepped into the game and saw what was left of humanity. This moment matters because it's more than just gameplay, it's about heart, it's about consequence. And apparently Ubisoft is listening. That means The Division 3 could just be something that just lives in the soul, not just the library of your computer. What do you want to see in The Division 3? So guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thanks for sticking with the deep dive into what could be one of the most important installments in Ubisoft's history. If you made it this far, you're not just a viewer, you're a legend. You're part of the community that kept this world alive when others moved on. Now it's your turn. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. What city should Division 3 explore? Do you want snow again or something harsher? Do you want to see survival mechanics? Do you want to have permadeath? Do you feel like the karma system would be a good idea to implement? Let's make this a bit of a discussion down in the comments below. If you believe in this vision and you want Division 3 to be something incredible, then like this video, it helps more than you think, and subscribe if you want more breakdowns and more deep dives, because we're only just getting started over here on the channel. Whether you're here for the story, the survival, or the streets, this channel's for you, so stay alert, stay tactical, and most of all, stay Division.